So it is December 2024. Wind and Truth has been out for a week. I am 80% of the way through it, and I am so excited to finish. I am vibrating in my chair. So what are we doing? We're recording an episode about A Court of Thorns and Roses.
ACOTAR.
ACOTAR by Sarah J. Maas. Dun dun dun. I do have a meme for this.
All right, go for it.
I mean, you can. I mean, you're obviously way more familiar with the series. Do you want you?
No.
You can do the honors.
You are Mr. Meme Man. Go for it.
All right, meme. Anyway, the number of times that I have texted you a picture of Squidward saying, "Oh no, he's hot," is. It's a lot. It's a lot. That one like really. Oh no, he's hot. As I'm reading through this book for the first time.
It's been such a joy.
Yeah, it's been.
Such a joy.
Yeah, it's been.
To watch you experience this for the first time ever. But hold on, let's do introductions first and before we really get into it.
All right, let's pause so I can insert some music. And now. And now.
Oh, well, normally you say...
Welcome.
It's been too long.
It's been too long. We haven't recorded in over a month. All right, and welcome. Hello, listeners, and welcome to Cosmere Casual, your casual reader's guide to Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere for the Cosmere Curious, except this time we're not.
It's a bonus episode.
It's a bonus episode. It's what we'll pull out when we haven't done our homework and are a little behind on recordings. I'm your co-host and never read ACOTAR before, Nick Gorman.
Well, you won't be able to say that for much longer. And I'm your other co-host, AJ Gorman.
I could not finish. Oh,
don't you dare.
Sorry. Oh,
don't you dare.
Oh, shit.
I told you that book 1 is all about setup, and the actual series doesn't start until book 2.
Okay.
So you have to make it through book 2 at least.
Okay. So,
all right, so getting back to it. So it has been such a joy. I can't even tell you to watch you read A Court of Thorns and Roses for the first time.
Yep. It's been something. Do we want to back up? We didn't plan for this episode at all. I needed something to do to kill the time, but and entertain.
I have read the entire series and a bunch of Sarah J. Maas books. Nick is 2/3 of the way through A Court of Thorns and Roses. So this is not really a pre-read and not really a post-read.
No, it's
somewhere in between.
This is going to be a spoiler-free review of A Court of Thorns and Roses, right? Because you're going to try to pitch me on the book, like we did for the Raven Tower, right? Do we have different ideas about what we're doing?
Yeah,
maybe we should take a step back. Maybe we should take a step back.
No, because I'm pretty much I'm going to go through and I'm going to read all of the text messages that you
Jesus
have sent
Christ!
me.
I did not consent to this.
So very first one.
No. Whoa. Okay. Hold on. Hold the phone. Pause. What I wanted to record for this episode was going to be what I was thinking was talk about the premise of the book, like we normally do for our spoiler-free pre-read episodes. And then we can talk about who would maybe be interested in this book that's also interested in the Cosmere. It's just sort of, we can save the reading of my texts for a post-read episode. Is delayed gratification not a thing in the series?
Maybe we'll just record both today.
I haven't finished it yet. There's gonna be more texts for me. We can do a mid-read episode.
Maybe.
Okay.
So
spoiler-free review. Or what is ACOTAR?
So this is ACOTAR is Romantasy. I think it's probably one of the most popular Romantasy series out there.
That's why I'm actually reading it.
So So I did not put you up to this. Let's be clear.
It's true.
I did not ask you to read this. I did not push you to read it.
You did not.
You came to me one day and you told me, I started reading A Court of Thorns and Roses. And I said, what?
There's more to it than that. Not much. We've been talking off and on about I made you read Raven Tower. What would you make me read if you were to do such a thing? and this was on the short list, right? But at the same time, I had also, there was like an extra week or week and a half where I wasn't reading anything before Wind and Truth came out. And I was like, well, I do want to be a more well-rounded reader. I've never read anything in the romantasy subgenre, never anything in the romance genre
So
at
let's
all.
start with some serious smut. Yeah.
Well, it's a very popular one. I don't know how smutty it is yet. It's pretty smutty. Oh no, he's hot.
There's more. I mean,
Okay.
there's more to it. There are definitely some Brandon-esque. You haven't
Expound on that. Go on.
So I feel like in fantasy, it hasn't always been the common for them to kind of talk about mental illness and dealing with that. Those. So you haven't really seen it yet in book one, but later on in the series, you see kind of a lot of dealing with that, particularly book two. So kind of that more realistic element is definitely brought into the series, which is good.
No, it's good. Yeah, I mean, people have problems, right? And seeing representation of people who are not neurotypical or otherwise or have mental illness, like that's it's good to see on popular media.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes it's helpful to like go through it with a character, and sometimes you're just like, I just want something calming. So that's not always. So yeah. So depending on what mood you're in, it's good or a little bit much.
Okay. Yeah. Because right now, about like I said, listener, reader, I'm about halfway through the book right now, and when we turn off the podcast today, it is not going to be to go back to Court and Thorn and Roses. I'm halfway through Wind and Truth. Oh my god.
Okay, we should probably mention the fact that we're not talking about it. It's because I haven't started it because I'm still finishing my Rhythm of War reread. I'm working on it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm working on it.
It's okay.
Apparently, I have a deadline of finishing it before we do our Cosmere Connections episode
for the Way of Kings.
Yep. Because we normally talk about everything that's published thus far. So I'm in trouble.
You're not in trouble. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about ACOTAR.
So the other thing.
Let's say our listeners have never heard of Sarah J. Maas, or maybe they've been actively avoiding the romantasy genre. What sort of person would have a good time picking up ACOTAR?
I feel like you would be a better person to answer that question, since you were not super interested in reading smut.
That's fair.
And I almost want you to not answer that until you get through book two. Okay. So that's the other thing that kind of makes it similar to Brandon. So if Brandon were to have written the series, books 1 and 2 would have been one giant book.
Gotcha.
Because book 1 is definitely all set up. Similar if you have read the Percy Jackson books in the second series of Percy Jackson, where you have, I forget the series name, but
the Olympians versus the Romans. No, what?
Yeah, when the second series where you're mixing Romans and Greeks. Book 1 of that series is just kind of seeing Jason arrive, and then book 2 is seeing what happened to Percy, and then it's not till the third book that you actually start to get into everybody coming together. So those first 2 books are all set up. That's what this is. Okay. Book 1 and so you are feeling very uneasy feelings.
Yeah.
About book 1.
Yeah.
Well, and you're supposed to.
Okay. Yeah.
You're supposed to feel uneasy.
Yeah.
At least in my mind.
So I can talk about why I decided I wanted to read ACOTAR when I was saying, I want to broaden my horizons. For one, it's, when even in my subreddit, suggestions, when, I started following all the Brandon Sanderson subreddits, that also started suggesting things like fantasy. And ACOTAR is one that I just see brought up. It's just immensely popular. And I can see why, reading it, where it's not something that has a huge barrier to entry. Like, you don't need to be familiar with all these tropes or lore, right? Very similar to Brandon Sanderson, right? Where it's, he uses tropes to great effect, but you don't need to be, you don't need to be super familiar with them, right? You don't need to know, like it helps to, and what am I trying to say? If you're going to go into like a D&D series, like a Forgotten Realms type thing, it helps to know what an elf and a dwarf is, and like sort of basic stuff like that. You don't need that for Brandon Sanderson. You don't need that for Sarah J.
Okay, A
Maas.
Court of Thorns and Roses is fairies, but yeah.
Yes, but like I don't know any like lore about fairies, right? Like I am vaguely, I'm vaguely aware that like mushrooms in a circle is called a fairy circle. I haven't seen that been brought up yet, right?
That's
You
little
know,
kid stuff.
okay, but like she, so she has, she uses, she draws inspiration from mythology and things like that, but like it's, you don't need to know, all this, mythology to go in. It doesn't feel like I'm missing out,
No,
right?
no, it's very easy to pick up. I would say that the other thing that connects, it makes it similar to Brandon Sanderson, is it is a multiverse.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm not sure I would have picked it up if I'd have known that.
You won't see it for a while.
Huh.
Like, she's, as an author, she has barely, kind of similar to Brandon, she's been very hesitant about it and not really doing much of anything with it. So I think she's just kind of now gotten to the point where she is definitely mixing worlds. So,
Well, because I mean that makes sense, right? You want to be established, make sure you can get the next book out, right? That someone's going to publish it before you start having crossovers.
it's a lot to ask readers to kind of,
and publishers, right?
yeah.
But yes, it's also a lot to ask publishers because or to ask readers because like I said, I was like, oh man, I didn't realize how much I was biting off, and I was like, yeah, I'll just pick up this book that keeps getting talked about and suggested subreddits and things.
Yeah.
Huh.
You won't see it for a long time yet if you ever get that far.
But yeah, so like I said, I like it.
Because I had when I had recommended to you to start to read Sarah J. Maas, I had recommended you start with Crescent City.
Oh, did you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I know you had tried to get me on a different book, and you had Sarah J. Maas, and I think you had started me with the second book in the series. So I was thinking it was this series.
The ACOTAR, yes.
Okay. Okay.
So did you actually start the second book?
I remember trying it like a few years ago and getting like one chapter in and being like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know any of these characters. I don't wanna.
All right.
So
you have a ways to go.
That's true. But yeah, I guess I don't know. Is there anything else to talk about? Before going into this, do you want to give a brief premise? I guess I can talk because I'm, like I said, I'm about halfway through, so I kind of know what's up.
So I will say that it is very easy to kind of just view this book as pure smut.
It's not, though.
When I read it the first time, I was just ready to just pour my heart and soul into the proposed relationship and just go with it. And watching you read it for the first time,
I don't know what that means, but okay.
Like I was like, you reading it for the first time, you're like questioning a lot of things.
Yeah, they're very sketchy people.
When I read it for the first time, I was just like, whatever, these people are going to get together, it's going to be awesome. Like, not worrying about too much, and not picking up on kind of the things that you were picking up on. Oh. So it's a very
oh man,
it's a very, in that sense, I can feel like a lot of people can read this for the first time, get to the end, or especially read the second book and then go back and say, I need to go back and read that first book. I think I'm going to have a completely different reread experience.
Okay.
So I would say for anybody who's just like, oh well, that's a smut series, there's more to it, definitely.
I mean, like, yeah.
You don't know that yet, Jared.
I don't
you don't
know
that yet,
but I'm just thinking, like, because they're like, so Brandon Sanderson, because we are a Cosmere podcast, I'm gonna start there. So Brandon Sanderson is sort of famous or infamous for not having sex scenes in his books, right? Like he just doesn't want to, he just doesn't write about sex. He doesn't want to. They fade to black, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from where I'm at, which is admittedly just halfway through the book, like this doesn't seem like a smut book because it's porn, right? Like it's not just sex scenes. There is a plot to it. It's not just about a relationship. It's also about, someone's got to save the world, basically, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's definitely more fantasy than romance.
Well, and like even, but like I said, I'm not familiar with the romance genre, but I don't, I'd
You mean
imagine
romantic?
like
Oh,
romance, right?
yeah,
Like the parent genre, like your Nora Roberts, you've got Fabio on the cover, right?
yeah.
Um, like I guess the only book that I've read that was romance was Pride and Prejudice, and that was just as much about, it like yes, it's about the romance, but it's also about like living in high society, right? And like acceptance in society and things like that. So I like it's like I don't you can't have a good book that's just like you can't have a good fantasy book that's just about magic and blowing shit up. So it's like it's got to have another meaning to it, right? So like
A
I
good
don't know.
story will, yeah.
Yeah,
There are a lot of bad stories out there.
I guess, but but that is part of why I picked it up, right? And not something I off of the $1 Kindle suggested reads or whatever, right? It
Right.
was because this has gotten so popular. There has to be something more than just mud to it. So, and that's what I'm finding. There is a lot more to it, right? So if I were gonna take a stab at the premise for this, Feyre is a scrappy young girl protagonist. She is trying to take care of her family, which
I
consists
don't
of
know if Scrappy is the right one.
she's feisty. She has a chip on her shoulder. She wants to fight everything and everyone.
Because that's what life has taught her, but yes.
Yes, but I mean, like that's the trope she's embodying there, right?
She's got a lot on her shoulders. Yeah.
Yeah. The whole fate of her family is basically depending on her. She um she's the provider for her family, even though she's the youngest sister, and she's got two older sisters and her dad. And I guess one day she's out hunting in the woods and she kills what she thinks is a wolf. Turns out fairy nobility. So she gets absconded off into the land of the fairies
So
as retribution.
a little bit Beauty and the Beast.
Very reminiscent of Beauty and the Beast,
Mhm.
right? And she's, taken away from her family. She's in this strange world full of magic and unknown threats. Like it's very surreal, up until where I'm at in the book. It's still very surreal.
It's one of those things where there are things happening elsewhere in the world that the character knows that it's being hidden, kept from her.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to try to figure out what's going on along with the main character.
Yeah. And like where I'm at right now, she's overcoming her prejudices against fairies. She's trying to, I don't know,
She's
establish.
a human, by the way. Did we
Oh,
say that?
that's right. She's, yeah, yes. And she's basically trying to assimilate herself into society.
Into fairy society.
Into fae society, yeah. And I'm trying to think like what else. There's a couple of love interests for her, but the so-called beast, the one who's more or less kidnapped her, is presented as her main love interest at this point.
Such interesting choice of wordings from you. I just cannot wait for you to finish.
That's what she said. I mean, if there were ever going to be an episode to do a That's What She Said joke, this would have to be it, right?
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, well, I think I'm funny. But yeah, no, I mean, I guess that's basically the premise. She makes a lot of bad assumptions. There are some things that sound vaguely like prophecies that I'm like, some of the wording here is very suspicious, very particular. These people seem to not have her best interests at heart.
You're just so suspicious, dude.
I am. Well, I mean, you don't have like a 5 or 6 book series and have everybody be, I don't want to say any more in a spoiler-free episode.
I can't remember how many books were out when I read the first book.
Yeah, but I mean, like, without going into spoilers, at first she's very suspicious and like she's like overly paranoid and things. But as it goes on, she relaxes her guard, and I increase my guard for her because I'm like, well, hold on, wait a minute. It kind of seems like you're being gaslit by this character, and it seems like this one's trying to protect you from himself and what you'll do if you disobey. That does not seem like healthy relationships at all. If the phrase Stockholm syndrome appears in this series, I would not be surprised. Maybe a little bit, but only because I don't think they have Stockholm. I've already forgotten the name of the country. Prithian? Is that the name?
Prithian.
Yeah, that's the name of the world they're in.
Kind of.
Okay. They don't have Stockholm. They do have Stockholm.
Well, that's Prithian's a land and somewhat a country. but it's not the entire world.
Okay.
It's been a while since I've read this, but there's definitely, that's not, Prithian is, there's more beyond Prithian.
Okay. Is there anything else we should know, spoiler free, going into this book? Is there any other pitches you want to make to it other than it looks like you're vibrating?
I am vibrating. I want you to finish, I want you to finish this book and then read it so we can talk about it.
Okay. When in truth has got to come first. Should we
But
sign
I
off?
haven't even started on it, and you have so little to finish with A Court of Thorns and Roses.
We've been Cosmere Casual. Thanks for listening, and thanks for podcasting with me, dear.
Thank you.
If you want to, I have no notes. So I'm trying to remember. It's been like a month since we've done this. I'm trying my best, guys. It's our email address is cosmerecasual@gmail.com. I think we have an Instagram. We definitely have a Reddit, Cosmere Casual.
Everything's Cosmere Casual.
Yeah, whatever. Our intro and outro music is licensed through Tribe of Noise. The artist is Ketsa, and the song is Odyssey.
Fairies can lie, right?
Fairies can lie. All right.